We are back and better than we've ever been before at the Nest. And now a very, very different Nest, Mr. Panchella. As I didn't realize this, you just made me aware, but we were actually over a year out from our last Nest podcast. So, and here we are in Morelos Ironworks, a very different setting for a very different reason. Morelos Ironworks, created by the one and only Mr. Ray Kirshner, who also created our set tonight and is producing this podcast. So here we are, Mr. Panchella, and it's been a while.
Yes, it has, but it feels good to be back, and I think we've worked out the kinks to really make this something beneficial for our student athletes and for anybody else who's interested in gaining a little bit of information.
Not to mention our cameras now that we are live. We were originally doing the podcast a year and a half ago from the WDTV studios, and now here we are. You know, we were only on the radio, but now here we are. You can see us visually as well, which adds a whole different piece, and I think that piece is important, and we'll get to more of that later, but I think we got to answer the question as to why. Why are we here? Why are we releasing a new podcast now? And there are quite a few reasons, and there's a very prevalent reason. We've had some of our student athletes who have been around for a while, who are juniors going on seniors, say, hey, where'd the podcast go? They were freshmen the last time that we did this, and now they're juniors doing big things, and so that's a reason. And then if we're being vulnerable, if we're being honest, I think both you and I, if we were in a court of law and put our hand on the Bible, would say we feel like we were born for a specific reason. We feel as though the two of us met for a specific reason. We're thrust into this situation for a specific reason. That was a purpose-driven desire to provide motivation to basically anyone that'll listen to us. The reality is anybody that comes around us and gives us an ear, we feel as though it's our job to selflessly give them the best that we can to make them better.
Absolutely, and it may not resonate with everyone. It may not be even all the high school students, but there may be some parents who take it in as well, and maybe they can learn something just like you and I continue to learn things, and all we can do is share those experiences, because if you're not, how do people get to where they're trying to get to?
That's right. And then the overlying, now we've been talking about this, and we can, we're telling the truth. I know people are going to be like, these guys aren't for real. But the reality is we've been talking about this for a couple months now of when are we bringing the podcast back. You had some lists on your board in your office. And now we are presented with the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic, the I-95 corridor that we are a part of that is just booming with nonstop immediacy. Give me now, on to the next, has been shut down, virtually shut down. We are out of school. We are currently pushing the limits of what what's recommended. I mean,
we're 7 people in this household.
Right, we got my 3
now.
daughters, my wife upstairs, and the 3 of us here at the MIW, and a dog. I guess he doesn't count, luckily, because then we'd be at 8. So if the pizza man, the mailman showed up, we'd be in trouble. But here we are.
Right, and we don't take it lightly. We're taking all the necessary precautions. And
6 feet away.
And we're acting as if, but it gave us more reason to launch this sooner than maybe we wanted to, but it's almost, you and I are really big fate people. This may have been fate, this opportunity to be able to share a message with those out there that are willing to listen and let people know that we are all in this together. We're going to try to not focus on, just the coronavirus. We want to use this as a way to kind of show the things that we teach the student athletes day in and day out, and now we have something real that we can use to show some of those things.
Our mission statement, if you will, our vision since day one has been to offer our student athletes the greatest experience possible. This is part of it, and before this was an auxiliary lift. If you're in the weight room, it was a resource outside of school that they could listen to if they wanted to. Now it's taken on a whole new life. Now this is, you have a ton of student athletes that roll through your room every single day, every period, and come to you, talk to you, see you, and you're their source of comfort. I have quite a few students that come with me during the lunch periods. They hang out in the office. We talk all the time. It's their source of comfort. Now that's been stripped away from a lot of our athletes. We see all our athletes every day after school. So normalcy is out the window. So I think our greatest hope is that at this time of unprecedented discomfort, we can offer our student athletes and others some kind of normalcy. Not saying that they need to hear our voices every day, but just to hear the philosophy that they've been hearing since they walked through the doors, at their leisure. They can hear it now. They've got it. They've got those voices they've been hearing every day. We're with you. And we're all going through all of this in real time. We're all doing this together. And it's important as you sit there by your computer reading an email saying, I got to do this virtual learning. My senior year was just stripped away from me. I'm a baseball player. I'm a softball player. I'm a laxer. I'm a track and fielder. I'm a golfer. I'm a tennis player. And now it's all gone. It's all been taken away. And we're here. We're not leaving. You're not alone. And, and you said this to me earlier, when we got the call on Saturday night, maybe Sunday, there were some kids out there that were like, this is awesome, no school, it's great. Very soon, the reality is going to set in that this is very uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think the unknown is scary for people. And sometimes your reaction is to try to laugh it off or pretend it doesn't exist or it's not me, I'm tougher than it. But for one of the few times in my lifetime especially is you're being faced with something that you can't fight. You can't stand in front of it and say, I'm tougher than you, or you're forced to be vulnerable right now. And we can only hope by sharing our thoughts on it that it sparks positive conversation amongst you and your friends and your parents, and you get a different perspective on what do you do when situations like this arise. Not how do you prep for it, but what adjustments do you make? And I think that's where we're going to kind of lead into this thing. We want to provide you with guidance, leadership, mentorship, and let you know that no matter how long we're away, we are here for you. We're a phone call away, an email away, and a part of mine and your identity have been stripped as well. I said that to my wife, She said, not are you excited to have off? I said, no, part of my routine is that interaction with those student athletes. Every single day I look forward to going to work because those kids are a part of me. So this is a big deal for me as well in terms of my routine and my sanity and keeping some normalcy in my life as well.
And as bleak as things look right now, and I don't know, we're not going to sit here and talk about, we're not going to predict because we honestly, we don't know. But it might get worse before it gets better. But as quickly as we were thrust into this, at some point, we're going to be thrust right back into something. It's going to be different, but it's going to be life again. And I think that we hope one of the things you take away from this podcast is you're prepared to go right back into a life that's maybe a little bit different, but maybe it's what you once knew. And if you're not prepared for that life, then what did you just do? What we don't want is we don't want our student athletes, we don't want our kids, our students at West Effort High School to waste however much time we have of this downtime. We don't want it to be wasted time. Wasted time is just, it's one of the worst things you can do with life. And if there's never been a more realistic example of that, it's right now. And so we hope that we can help you. And this is going to be a 3-part series to start. We're going to release 3 segments this week and hopefully release another set next week and release them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday-ish so that you can kind of listen to them maybe once or twice and motivate yourself. You wake up on Thursday morning and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't do this for another day. I got this online assignment. I'm just going to push it off. I don't want to work out. I don't want to train. I just want to lay in bed. I'm just going to let the world pass me by and stay in my house. And maybe you listen to this as you're in the shower, as you're brushing your teeth, as you're doing an online assignment, right? Because that distance learning is so critical to you graduating. As you deal with, whatever happens this senior trip or your senior year, maybe you throw this on and you're like, okay, some normalcy. I know that there's a purpose at the end of this thing.
Absolutely. And like you said, we're going to try to do 3 parts. We're going to try to keep it, within that 15 minutes so it's not so drawn out. We want to keep your attention. And I think the main focus of this 3-part series, which a lot of our student athletes have heard you say and something I've adopted as well, is improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I don't know if that phrase could be more appropriate during a time like this.
I agree, and we're going to split them up to try to talk about improvise, adapt, and overcome in one segment. We're trying to keep this 15 to 20 minutes long. We don't want to lose anybody's attention. It's impossible to do it right. So we're going to try to break it up by segment and work our way through this thing and really unpack what it means. And like Joe just said, if you've walked through especially the athletic doors of West Everett High School, but you probably heard it all, from us somehow, some way. Improvise, adapt, and overcome is the cornerstone of what we believe in, and tonight we're going to focus on improvise. And the reality is, improvisation is used in many different genres. But to me, it means to develop a plan, to have a plan. But, and this is the big piece, you're going to have a plan. You got to be ready for that plan to change. That plan is going to change. And if you can't roll with that and come up and redirect that plan on the move, then that plan is going to fail. And that's the reality. And to me, that's what improvisation is.
Absolutely. Looking it up in the dictionary, produce or make something from whatever is available. When I read that and you look at how that word is used, that becomes really powerful. As human beings, we're always going to fail. Things are always going to change. How can you handle yourself in that moment to make the adjustment? And the word change is what comes to mind. Your willingness and ability to change on the fly when things don't go your way, or maybe they're better than expected and you're still changing things, but you have to be prepared to make adjustments. I think we fail sometimes being so focused on the blueprint. I've got to follow the blueprint. But in any profession, in any job, the surgeon who goes in and finds something else, the builder who hits a roadblock or the tree stump or this or that, they're forced to make adjustments. You can find that in all walks of life. And right now, more than ever, the entire world has been forced to improvise.
Right, and the hard part is, you got to understand, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're a student at West Everett High School, I got news for you. We might be doing distance learning, but the expectation at the end of the day hasn't changed. I get it. We're very uncomfortable right now. The whole country is uncomfortable right now, especially us, because we're such fast movers. We're not used to shutting down. But to me, improvisation is understanding that there's going to be constant change to whatever you're doing. So we went from in-person teaching in the classroom to distance learning outside of the classroom. I got news. The expectation is exactly the same. So just like Coach Morrell is calling you down to the office to do a grade check, those grades are just as important now as they were when we were person to person. But now there's a little more accountability on the student. Right? But we're going to be, I'm telling you, Joe, and you notice, at some point we're going to be thrust right back in to the reality of being in the classroom. And if you're sleepwalking your way through whatever crisis we have going on right now, and you think you're just going to check out of life, you got another thing coming, okay? Because things will settle, people will do what they're supposed to do, and life will go on. And there are no excuses at the end of this thing. So if you're not willing to improvise right now and say, all right, you know what? I'm going to do my assignments as much as I don't want to. I have the whole day to myself to do this. I'm in the house. Maybe now is the time to become a better student than you were beforehand.
Right. And it's that time now to make those adjustments in your routine, things you didn't like. I'm not reading enough. I'm not getting to bed early enough. I'm not waking up early enough. You have the ability right now to change those things and incorporate an even more positive routine, even while you're uncomfortable, right? We always say, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Well, right now it speaks volumes. What can you do to handle this time? Are you reaching out to others who need you? Are you taking your assignments a step further? Are you trying to learn something you didn't learn? Are you training on your own, even if you're trapped in your house? I think this is what will show what kind of person you are. What kind of character do you have? Are you just packing it in and saying, this is over, it's done, I got no sports, I've got nothing left? Or are you saying, I'm being challenged right now?
You hit the nail on the head. How about the fluidity of the situation we're dealing with? We went from possible closure to be prepared to close to we're shut down within a 36-hour span to no access to the building to bars, restaurants, gyms, movie theaters shut down, right? So you might be an athlete who is coming to Carpe, and you're saying, I had one of our athletes contact me today, Coach, we got bad news. The gyms are shutting down. What are we going to, I said, what do you mean, what are you going to do? Are you kidding me? Have we taught you nothing? I'm not going to mention names, toss your money, but you might have said, what am I going to do? I don't know. IAO. Improvise, adapt, overcome. And to be honest with you, what I actually said to him was, so you're telling me before the first barbell was ever created, nobody was working out? He goes, what do you want me to do, grab a boulder? I said, you can't walk the steps with your little brother on your back. You can't do push-ups till failure 5 times, however many sets, how many failure you got to do. You know what he did? 2 hours later, he sent me a video of him bench pressing a bowling ball till failure. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Some people are like, that's ridiculous. All right, well, what's the option? What's the option right now?
But I think you're absolutely right. You can sit here and feel sorry for yourself, or you can continue to remind yourself, we're all in this together. And I think we're all being, I hate to say taught a lesson because that's not the right word choice, being that so many people are affected by it and people do die. And we obviously care about that a lot. But, how are you going to respond to that? What's the choice? You have a choice right now. You have a choice. And that choice should be to rise to the occasion. For the first time in your life, the biggest adversity you've ever faced is staring at you. And stare right back at it.
Yeah.
Take that next big step forward and attack these days. Attack these days until there's nothing else left to do and you feel satisfied with what you accomplished in that day.
And we're not individuals with this. It's not like students are feeling you don't think Dr. Money probably hasn't slept in days because of what he's dealing with. And that goes to the other administration in the district. The reality is we are all adjusting to what we're being told. And I'm sure everybody has an opinion. We fall into that too. We give our opinion, leaders give us directives. We're like, well, why did this? The reality is we don't have much say. We got to react to it, And, for example, our spring season, it's hard not to get emotional thinking about the spring student athletes whose seasons are in peril. So what are you going to do? I mean, you got to operate as if, at some point we're going to be, there's no more preseason. That's how I would operate. There is no more preseason. When we come back, we're coming back to full-blown games, competition, and every competition is going to impact our playoffs and our seedings. And so if I'm a spring student athlete right now, I might be working harder than I've ever worked before. You know what I mean?
I think you just nailed it on the head right there. Who improvised the hardest?
Right. That's what's going to come down to. Talent is thrown out the window and everything's equal.
Right. Absolutely. Everything's equal. And as I look at you and I, we don't even compete with those teams. We're just supporters. We try to make that possible. But I already said to myself, I have to attack these days. I met Mr. McAndrew this morning, 7 a.m. And we went out, 14 miles just to try to regroup, to keep some normalcy. And no, we said, we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the kids. We want to talk about positive approaches. What else can we do? They're allowing that. That's a small group activity. That gets you out there. Yep. Find 2 friends. Do something you've never done before. Help your parents out. Watch your siblings, but also attack the coursework like you never have before. I think these are the times where you can really get ahead and I think almost surprise yourself at what you're made of.
Yeah.
At what you're made of. You and I talk about it constantly. Why does it always take a tragedy or adversity for someone to rise to the occasion?
I guarantee that the groups, when spring sports comes back into full effect, the groups that are successful are the ones where the individuals took the most accountability, and accountability is a whole other session, took the most accountability and improvised on how they're going to get better during this break. I started working on our winter 2020-2021 schedule today. That's what because I'm not just going to sit there twiddling my thumbs. The whole improvise, adapt, overcome idea. I know I heard when I was 6 years old, my dad, you brought this up to me, that it came from Heartbreak Ridge. Great movie. You're going to have time. Look it up. I don't know if it's on Netflix. Clint Eastwood, I think it was 1986, Heartbreak Ridge. My dad made me watch it from when I was 6 to about 15, and it's really come full circle with me now. But that's where I heard improvise, adapt, and overcome for the first time.
Right.
So
it's a mindset, and it's not a coincidence that it's been adopted by the Marines and something they use for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual hardship. That they use those phrases to help them face the challenges of life. And right now we're being challenged. We're being challenged in a way that we've never had before. So why not try to be prepared for everything, even if everything is the unknown right now?
That's right. Step up to the plate, West Effort. Let's do it. Let's take this once in a lifetime, unprecedented moment to prove what we really are all about, and all this talk we've been doing over the years, put it into play. And when we come for our next episode, we're gonna adapt.
And it might be the biggest one of them all, man.
Right,
It's what encompasses change. It's what people are afraid of. The ability to adapt is the only way to be successful, because every situation, every surrounding presents something new, and you need to be able to adjust how you operate to make sure that works.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, oh man, I can't wait till they come out with the next one. You better listen to this twice before you get to adapt, because when we come back on Wednesday with adapt, it's going to be heavy. And I think it might be the most critical piece to successfully surviving what we're going through right now. So we will see you in just a few days, a few hours from now. Who knows what's going to happen in those few hours? Things could be drastically different, but we can't wait to come back on episode 2, where we attack adapting in our Improvise, Adapt, and Overcome series. So with that, we wish you a very good night. We're glad to be back, and we're excited to be with you during this time of adversity. We're here for you. So we will see you in a few days. Take care, West Effort.